And in that region there were shepherds out in the field, keeping watch over their flock by night. In the field, with cacti and caves and roses and grass among the rocks, shepherds in smelly skins and sweaty shoes and dirty knuckles and matted uncombed hair in the field. There were shepherds out in the field, men in the field, at work, men working outside Bethlehem, north and west of town, or was it north and east, or south? Men in the field somewhere, men, ordinary, extraordinary men. Go down Main Street, 2 blocks, turn right to the alley, now left, and straight ahead. It isn't much of a place. You could miss it. A few men overhauling engines there in the shop, down on the ground, where men work among engines and motors and gardens and cement and bricks and timber and tools and trucks and missiles and sheep. On the ground, in that region, in the field, the shepherds waited. They watched sheep and waited. Men working and waiting. Men fix cars and tractors and they wait. The psalmist waited, kings waited, Sarah waited, David waited, Isaiah waited, Joseph waited, Simeon waited, Israel waited, David, Joseph, Simeon, men, shepherds, Israel, America. Christmas comes. In the Holy Land, in my homeland, in any land, among men with dirty knuckles in greasy overalls and sweaty shoes and perfumes and white collars and clerical collars and bow ties and no ties and housecoats and uniforms and dress suits and sloppy dressing. Christmas doesn't need dressing up or decoration. It does not need preparation like covering the body just right or folded hands in silence. It does not depend on keeping watch over sheep and cars and machinery and employees and a section of land or a store. The shepherds were just being at work, keeping watch over their flock by night, and he was born. Calendars do not tell when Christmas comes. Man does not read it off a wall or the face of clocks, for Christmas appears. It is in the fields, in the middle of sheep sleeping, the inn, in the midst of hammers pounding, motors roaring, multitudes walking, and people sleeping and rocking. When man does not have the time or the power to get ready, it comes. And in that region, there were shepherds out in the field, keeping watch over their flock by night. And an angel of the Lord appeared to them. An angel of the Lord appeared. Where are the newscasters? Where are the predictors and waiting crowds and engineers and cameras and boom mics and program directors and reporters? 1 minute away from the moment that he was born, and the crowds and engineers and newscasters were not there. They did not know. Not even secret intelligence people knew, not even the government. People weren't coming cross-country to celebrate. No jammed telegraph wires. No children counting off weeks and finally minutes with excitement. No speeches with meter and rhyme and nervous parents in front of congregations. No busy mailman. No deep-freeze stuff with cookies. None of all these things. And the angel of the Lord appears. No thing on all the earth like speeches and telegrams and cookies and cards and human kindness and charity made Christ to be born. None of this. It came by itself. Christmas belongs to God. He gives it when He wants to, why He wants and when He wants to. Christmas belongs to God first, so that human eyes may even see Him, and ears hear Him, and mouths of men adore Him. Ordinary mouths of men adore Him. The angel of the Lord appeared, saying, "Fear not." Christmas belongs to God first, then to man, to the inside of man, where shepherds are afraid. It comes to the hearts of men, with dirty knuckles and greasy clothes, white collars and dress suits, to the hearts, not to the house or town or the city or the frosted windows and beautiful main street. It came to the shepherds inside, where they carried their fear, there, in there where men fear, there where decorations and cookies don't reach, there inside, where every man has a special room for it, for fear. Fear does not discriminate. It goes with man into the sheepfold, under the grease rack, up the elevator, and into the cathedral. Fear is no respecter of people. It makes no choice between rich and poor, sheep herders and royalty, executives and farmers and teachers, and the young and the very old. Fear is no respecter of people. Nor is Christmas. Man was ready. The shepherds were ready. Ready in reverse. They were afraid. That is what Christmas came for fear and the fearful. Where men are all the same, where they are afraid, there He came. Christmas has to do with fear. Fear cast out. And they were filled with fear. Angels could scare a grown man to death if they crept up on him in the shop or in the office or on the tractor. Man can be scared by angels or even by Christmas or God if he doesn't know for sure. It is where man needs to know for sure about something that matters to him, about everything that matters to him, that Christmas came and comes. Be not afraid. Afraid not of what the angels would say, but plain afraid. Be not afraid of why men are afraid. And the glory of the Lord shone round about them, and they were filled with fear. The light was on them, maybe for 5 minutes, maybe 1 second, maybe not the way clocks count time. This was not kilowatt or spotlight or floodlight. This was the glory of the Lord breaking through and shining not on a house or a colonial door or a huge chimney or on a silver tree. It was on shepherds, in shepherds, around shepherds. No mistake about it. Christmas is from God above to people on earth, people scared. God's light ignored their knuckles and clothes and reputation. It did not show that they were tired or poor. It showed that they were scared, scared men. For scared shepherds, Christmas was good news, for now they knew for sure what only God knows and can tell. They were hearing what no one could find out unless God said it, and God told the angels to tell people and to call it glad tidings, good news. It is a great joy which will come to all the people. All people, shepherds, presidents and cooks, pole vaulters and kings and hired hands, soldiers, actors, depressed, athletes, sick men, ministers, meat packers, alcoholics, governors. Fear is no respecter of persons, nor is Christmas. Man, you can turn a gift down because you already have one, or it doesn't fit, or you don't like the color. But what God gave that night, while they were keeping watch over the sheep, or what God gives down the alley in the grease pit, it fits. It fits the fears of big men, 10-year-olds, toddlers, women, young men, any man, every man. Christmas is for every man. But it comes from God. It is not like Christmas presents. It cannot be bought or looked at. It cannot be opened or set on a table. You cannot hug the one who gave it or kiss him or thank him by phone. You can do that to people, not to God. You can only let him do this and be amazed and dumbfounded and wonder and wonder and wonder. No longer does man and woman and child go south on the road that leads from Nazareth past Samaria to Bethlehem. No longer do they go somewhere to be counted like marbles and candy and screws. They go to be calculated without leaving Nazareth or Magdala or Arimathea or Anchorage, Algiers, Alabama, Alcatraz or Arbella or Bethel or anywhere. Counted by a measure and system as miraculous as God crowded into a womb at night, yet comfortable as man and counted as one. By this beyond all understanding, man comes wherever he is and is counted. He remembers the one born out of woman that night, a birth echoed from heaven to a pasture and from man to men. Caesar went out counting out loud upon the earth, as men still count with tags and numbers and serial numbers, and initials and abbreviations and X's and titles and footprints and fingerprints. But this a man must remember, that he does count in the heavens. And this he knows by the strange mixture and miracle of a cattle shed and God, of some water and word, of some bread and the body, by the juxtaposition of the Prince of Peace in Samaria, mighty God in swaddling cloths, counselor in the slaughter of Bethlehem's children. Man knows as he sees together, wonderful counselor, and the kid on goofballs, Prince of Peace, and a dad on his belly crawling to get another roll of gunfire for his comrades. Man knows he counts in the heavens by hearing the sun out of water, out of breath, on a tree. One night it was made sure that man surely counts. Mighty God on the way past the universe and past the earth, and past the nations, and past the little town and the bleachers of the hills, and past the palace, and past the inn, and the stable and straw, mighty God on the way past these things, unto man on all the earth. God coming to that place, which is like no place on a map. God coming not to the suburb, or seashore, or countryside, or city, or where man lives along some road or boulevard or shack or water tower, but God coming to where man is man, and where man needs his God, and where God is for man, King of kings, Lord of lords. He was now one more on the earth, and every man could now become one more in heaven. It begins in the presence of God, the day he was sending his Son away to earth for birth. From the absolute other end of eternity he came that very night, the one who knew the formula for starlight and could figure in head calculus and 10 million formulas at once and come out right easier than man can do on paper adding 1 and 2. He came, the one who needed only speak a tiny bit and move a universe into perfect orbit, and have the whole worlds fall into constellation, and use one simple word to cover this huge event: creation. The one who was eternally before me and everlastingly after me, who said and says and will ever say, "Let there be salvation for all creation." He left peace and continual praise and angel mirth to enter earth and birth. God agreed one morn that Jesus should be born. Jesus must be born, and with his will and word enter the world of beast and fish and flower and bird and man, to rule heaven from upon the earth. This was the mission of this condescending birth, to rule all of heaven from upon the earth. Coming an infinite distance in a fraction of time, he descended straight down on the line that man's imagination has marked from heaven to earth. He came from every corner of all of heaven and every inch of all eternity, to a town 1 mile wide, and to each man, the everlasting one down in straw and wine and water and bread and people's houses and thoughts and sins, and among the ones with ache and pain and the living and the dead. This is what the Father meant, and what the Spirit meant, the night the Son was sent from afar to where people are. Shh! Quiet, please. That's what man can mean by Christmas. Shh! Quiet, please. The baby sleeps, just born, alive, too soon, at the brink of death and the edge of life. The starting line and finishing line 1 second apart. Nurses watch. Mother waits. Father waits. And others. God is inside. Almighty God inside a room. Inside incubators along a wall. Inside a struggling heart, wrapped in fresh oxygen and no swaddling cloths, lying not in straw, but in danger. God in there with the power of everlasting life, remarking the critical list and coming humbly and simply with a drop of warmed water and a hand barely wet, and the Word, the one who once was among those waiting to be born, to gasp for the first breath himself, comes into the fears of the weeping ones, in the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Ghost. God takes taking a critical list and marking it. All is bright, and now all is calm in the incubator and outside. Explanations are quite another thing. For one wrapped in oxygen and lying deep in danger was met by one once wrapped in swaddling cloths and lying in a manger and out of danger. Nurse, father, mother, you need not be so quiet anymore. And a decree went out that all the world should be enrolled. For 1 day, and 2 days, and 3 days, the infant jostled within his mother, jolted by the tread of a donkey walking on the rough road through Jericho. Prince of Peace, mighty God, wonderful Counselor, Prince of Peace curled in a dark womb, riding among travelers in the trek moving toward birthplaces. Prince of Peace, jostling on a ragged road on the eastern banks of the Jordan, skirting Samaria on purpose. Prince of Peace, helpless, skirting Samaria, on his way to be born for Samaria. Almighty God and anonymous host, rooted south, glad finally for the valley of green pastures, sweeping like a carpeted amphitheater before them, with tiny Bethlehem huddled in the bleachers, the hills chopping into the horizon, and in them lay Bethlehem, and little white houses, and people, God in Bethlehem. Bethlehem in the bleachers of the hills, in the midst of gardens and vineyards, waiting on the earth for the mighty God to be born. Almond scent and olive foliage, and pastures and waving grain mingle to remind the two travelers and all travelers of Boaz and Jesse and David in Bethlehem, and now Jesus, the mighty God, unconscious in the womb of a woman. On the way to Bethlehem, rising out of the hills above Bethlehem, the house of Herod, like a mighty fortress of a king, frightened of a king riding in a womb, unborn. Silently in this third day, the mighty God, on the royal road that led to the city of David, went to wait in line and be counted as a member of the world. And a decree went out from Caesar Augustus that all the world should be enrolled. Hiding behind all the Bethlehem hills was the holy city. Hiding behind the decree in the holy night was the awful holy city. There was no room in the inn that night, and none in the holy city later, and in the world later. They came from Magdala and Emmaus, from Arimathea, Ephraim, Bethabara, Kadesh, Nain, and Nazareth, to Bethlehem. In Bethlehem they counted 92, 93, 94, and Joseph and Mary 95 and 96, and a baby 97. And so they counted on and on, one by one. He was one dwelling among men, to be enrolled and to be loved to death.